What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. With the NBA season kicking off here in 2023-2024, I thought I'd do some NBA returns this week, and I'm going to feature 3 recent returns that I got back in the mail and talk about each of the individuals and their career in basketball. So let's just jump right into this. And the first one is a return from former Atlanta Hawks great Jon Koncak on 1, 2, 3, him getting down and dirty on the floor there, and a 4th, Fleer. I really like the skybox one. I feel that one turned out really nice. So let me tell you about Jon Koncak and his career in basketball. Jon Koncak was born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. However, he grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, where he attended high school. He attended Southern Methodist University from 1981 to 1984. In his time at SMU, he led the Mustangs to 2 NCAA tournaments. He led the team in scoring his final 3 seasons, his sophomore through senior year, while compiling a 67-29 record in that span. After the 1984 season completed, he was selected to play in the 1984 Olympic Games alongside a couple of those other guys named Patrick Ewing, Michael Jordan, Chris Mullin, to name a few. So he was part of the 84 Los Angeles Olympics gold-winning basketball team. After the Olympics, he was drafted in the 1985 draft by the Atlanta Hawks, number 5 overall. In his first season in the NBA at 22 years old in 1985-86, he appeared in all 82 games for the Hawks. He only started 15 that season, so he was primarily a bench player that year. However, he did average 8.3 points his first year, which would actually be a career high for him, his first season in the league. Jon was more known for being a reserve bench type player. He would come off the bench, wrestle for the ball like he's doing there, get a few rebounds, that type of thing, play some solid defense. He, would appear in 82 games the following year for the Hawks, and he would actually spend a 10-year career playing for the Atlanta Hawks. Well, one thing that I guess the best way I can put it that Jon's known for, and this is kind of a dubious thing, Jon was offered a contract to join the eventual champion Detroit Pistons. And in 1989, the Pistons wanted to get Jon Koncak, as he was in his contract year, was up with the Hawks. And the Detroit Pistons offered him a big contract for $13 million. Well, the Hawks decided, hey, we don't want to lose Jon. We drafted him, and, he's part of our bigger plans, so to speak. And even though Jon wasn't a starter, by any means, he was a bench reserve type player, the Hawks decided to match that contract by the Pistons, and Jon signed a 6-year, $13 million deal. And this is kind of, I don't want to say controversial, but this is not a starting player. And he got a $13 million contract, which was a big deal back in that era. Well, unfortunately, because of him signing that contract, he got the nickname Jon Contract instead of Jon Koncak or Cac. Well, he finished up his time with the Hawks, and when it was all said and done, he appeared in 717 games for the Hawks. Starting 344 of those, so roughly half of his career was as a starter, but the majority of his career, the other half, was just being a reserve player. And typically you don't pay a reserve player that kind of money. But, after he finished his time up with the Hawks, he did sign a 1-year deal to go back up this Shaquille O'Neal guy in Orlando. So he was Shaq's backup in Orlando for 1 season. And, after the 95-96 season, Jon was 32 years old. He spent 11 years in the league, and he retired. And that's basically where he's been ever since, retired. Jon has popped up working for the Atlanta Hawks here and there, in some basketball clinics and such. As a matter of fact, when I was doing research for this video, I came across a clip of him showing a younger player on the art of rebounding. So I will link that down here in the description. It's just a YouTube short, less than a minute long. So if you get a chance, definitely check that out. You know, and that's kind of where Jon's at today. So thank you, Mr. Koncak, and we'll move on to the next return. All right, this next return is from Indianapolis, Indiana, and it is a return from Mr. Pacer himself, Vern Fleming, and Mr. Pacer was a name that Vern had during his playing days with the Pacers. And Vern signed 404 graciously for me. Unfortunately, on that Fleer card, he started his signature. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, but on that Fleer card, he started his signature over here in blue Sharpie. So it's kind of hard to see the Vern part, but you can see the Fleming part. If you would have just moved it over just a tad, it would have been the full signature over here in the action shot. But overall, I think the skybox looks really nice. I've said this many times on my channel. I absolutely love the second year skybox because they're great for autographs as opposed to the first year of skybox with the dark black background. So let me tell you about Vern Fleming and his career in basketball. So Vern grew up in New York. He went to high school in New York as well. However, he attended college at the University of Georgia. From 1980 to 84, Vern was a shooting guard at the University of Georgia, and that's important to remember that part. And he played for the University of Georgia and was actually a teammate of Jon Koncak on the 1984 men's U.S. Olympic gold medal basketball team. So both Jon Koncak and Vern Fleming were on that team with Jordan Ewing and Mullen that won the gold medal in Los Angeles. So another gold medal winner in this episode. I guess I should have waited till the Olympics to share these, but that would have been, 6 to 8 months from now. So didn't want to wait that long to share these returns. And after Vern won his Olympic gold medal, he was the 18th overall selection in the 1984 NBA draft. Well, initially, Vern was drafted as a shooting guard. However, he transferred over to point guard his rookie season with the Pacers. Well, his first year with the Pacers, he started 65 of 80 games, and he actually averaged 14 points a game and 3.1 assists a game for a rookie at 22 years old. Even though Vern was kind of a natural shooting guard, playing out of position, he was typically big for a point guard. He was 6'5". However, he was only about 185 pounds. So he was tall and lanky, in other words. And instead of throwing a big fit about, hey, I should be the shooting guard, when they drafted Reggie Miller, Vern took it in stride, and he was not selfish. His teammates have talked about how unselfish of a player that Vern Fleming was, and he took over the reins as the point guard full time. Well, him and Reggie would tandem together through the mid-1990s. Vern would spend 11 seasons playing for the Indiana Pacers. There would be some instances, in the early 90s, that the Pacers would go another direction with their point guard. They'd have Mark Jackson, they would have Haywood Workman. Despite that, Vern didn't complain. He came off the bench and still did his job. Well, when it was all said and done, Vern had played in 816 games for the Indiana Pacers. He averaged 11.7 points per game and 4.9 assists per game, when he had a career high once in 1990 where he recorded a career high of 18 assists and 14 points in a win over the Houston Rockets. Now, the Houston Rockets were not an easy team to beat at that time because they had that Elijah fellow on their team. So after his time with the Pacers, Vern did sign a one-year deal in 1995-96 with the New Jersey Nets. He finished out his career with the Nets in the NBA. However, after his one season in New Jersey, after his career ended in the NBA, he decided to play one season overseas in France. So when it was all said and done, Vern played in 11 seasons for the Indiana Pacers, appearing in 816 games for them. He ranks in the top 5 in the offensive categories, especially assists, and he still lives in the Indianapolis area to this day. I don't know how involved he is with the Pacers, but I would assume he's there in some capacity, even in retirement. And I am so happy to add this Indiana Pacers legend to my collection because he's one of the greats from the era when I grew up watching basketball and loving the NBA. So we'll move on to the final return. All right, I saved this last one for you because this guy's story is just downright amazing. This is the epitome of working very hard and trying to follow your dreams to one day being successful at whatever it is you do, and in this guy's case, being an NBA player for over a decade. Who am I talking about other than former Dallas Mavericks great point guard Brad Davis on 4 of 4 and a final card of him, a 3-player card from the Mavericks' first season in 1980 with him and a couple other players. I know that Jim Sparnacle signs to the mail. I'm not sure about Lagarde. I know Sparnacle is very involved with the NCAA tournament, come CBS and all that during March Madness. You can see him on the sideline doing commentary. But this video is about Brad Davis, so we're going to talk about Brad Davis and his hairstyle in the early 80s compared to the late 80s. No, I'm just kidding. You can see he had the long hair there, and by the end of the decade, he was sporting the 80s mustache along with short hair. So let me tell you about Brad Davis and his rather remarkable journey to play in the NBA. So Brad Davis grew up in Pennsylvania. He attended Monica High School and played basketball there, and he also played baseball. He received Class B All-Pennsylvania honors as a basketball player, but also tried out for baseball with the Pittsburgh Pirates and eventually decided to sign on a basketball scholarship to play for the legendary Lefty Driesell at the University of Maryland. As a freshman, he was named the starter at point guard, playing alongside guard great John Lucas. He averaged 12.6 points per game and 4.6 assists per game. Moving forward through his junior season, he averaged 12.4 points and 4.9 points a game, and he declared that he was going to join the NBA after that season, finishing with an average of 12.2 and 5.1 during his 3-year college year career. Davis was selected by the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round with the 15th overall pick of the 1977 season. Unfortunately, as a rookie, he missed 8 weeks right off the bat with a broken hand and was passed on the depth chart by fellow legendary Lakers rookie Norm Nixon. In his second season with the Lakers, he was waived after just 10 games in 1978. So this guy went from being a first-round pick to being waived his second season in the league. Discouraged, Brad signed to play with the Montana Sky of the Western Basketball Association. He played 1 year in 1978 in that independent, I guess you would call it, basketball league. After that season ended, in February of 1979, he signed as a free agent with the Indiana Pacers and appeared in just 18 games with the Pacers before he was released before the following season. In 1979, he signed to go play in the CBA this time in Anchorage, Alaska for the Anchorage Northern Knights, where he helped them win the league championship. Well, he got noticed again, and he signed with the Utah Jazz on February 29, 1980. The Jazz felt that he wasn't going to make the roster, and he was let go from his contract. With a short tenure with the Jazz, he then went to a tryout with the Pistons. He went in on July 11th and signed his contract with the Pistons, only to be cut on October 8th that season. Davis was at the point of his career where he had to make a decision. He was thinking about going back to school, and then his phone rang. It was the Dallas Mavericks that had already been 2 months into the season looking for somebody to come play for them in their first year, their expansion year into the league. Well, this is where it's amazing. This guy was about to quit on his career, and he signed and became the starting point guard for the expansion Dallas Mavericks. On March 27, 1981, the Mavericks signed him and gave him an extension into the 1982-83 season. He then set a team record of 7.2 assists per game and a field goal percentage of 5.72, and led the team with 80 steals. In June of 1983, he signed another contract extension. He became a fan favorite and spent the rest of his NBA career, 12 seasons, with the Mavericks. On August 1st, 1992, he announced his official retirement. He averaged 8.6 points per game, 5.1 assists, and 1.9 rebounds a game during his career. Brad Davis was the final original Maverick from the team's first season to be the franchise leader in assists, games played, and minutes played. On November 14th, 1992, Davis was the first Dallas Maverick to have his number retired when the number 15 jersey was raised in the rafters at Reunion Arena. After Davis's playing career, he became a broadcaster for the Mavericks. He worked in player development. He actually was an assistant coach as well for the Mavericks during his tenure. And still to this day, from my understanding, according to my research, Brad still works in player development for the Dallas Mavericks. So this guy, I'm going to repeat this really quick, a recap. This guy went from being the Lakers' #1 first-round pick to being released, bouncing around to the CBA and the Western Basketball Association, getting tryouts with multiple teams, not making the cut, felt down and depressed, was going to go back to college to finish his degree, and then he got hired by the Dallas Mavericks, and he's had a job with them ever since. I mean, how crazy is that? In 1980, he got a job with the Mavericks and has got a paycheck from them ever since. So I'm so happy to share Brad Davis's story with you. I actually am happy to share all of these guys' stories with you because these are all guys that are kind of forgotten. All of them were great in their own way, playing for their respective teams. I mean, Vern Fleming, like I said, had the nickname Mr. Pacer. Now, a lot of people don't think of Mr. Pacer that it would be Vern Fleming, but that was the title that they gave him during his playing days there. And I absolutely love getting these skybox cards signed. I think they're absolutely beautiful. I hope you learned a little bit about Jon Koncak, Brad Davis, and Vern Fleming. Again, the NBA season's kicking off, so I thought I'd share these with you. Look forward to your comments below, and as always, happy collecting.